Several years ago, NASA and French researchers released a very fascinating study of the Earth's surface. They discovered that the planet have hundreds of craters that was created artificially. The diameter of the crater is an average of 2 to 3 kilometers, but they are real giants up to 120 kilometers. Scientists suggest these types of craters were formed by thousands and even millions of years ago by the falling of meteorites of various sizes. At the same time, independent researchers around the world have came to the conclusion that the craters were formed by the strong nuclear war that took place more than 25,000 years ago. It is obvious that a lot of the largest craters on Earth have been known to researchers for a long period. A research conducted by NASA, the wonder is not these rare giants and their smaller cousins, craters that have approximately the same size and similar artificial structure. This man-made structure obviously was formed in the fall of something massive, so craters even gave a general name: impact craters. These craters, as you know, there was a great deal, and they are scattered across the Earth. Their source is a mystery, but of course, the most probable and obvious version: this meteor rain or just scattered meteorites falling on our planet in different historical periods. Most scholars date the famous crater millions of years before our era and do not doubt that they have a meteoric origin. It is understandable in the formal science and history is another version simply cannot exist. However, researchers from the informal science noticed some oddities that indirectly support the theory of ancient nuclear war. In fact, there are only two important arguments. First, all the craters are located in completely deserted, uninhabited areas. In short, in the desert, where there is no life at all. But after the fall of the meteorite on the ground is not required to form a desert. More precisely, it has never formed. But in place of nuclear attack is inevitable regularity. The second argument: if the funnel were really so old, they would have long since been washed away from the land, included sand and other sediments. Archaeologists have long been estimated that the average soil growing at a rate of 1 meter for 100 years, and our craters have long had to catch up to the surface, and they are well preserved as if formed recently. The figure took 25,000 years as stated in some sources, based on the analysis of the walls of the largest craters in South Africa, with a size of 120 kilometers. What exactly is meant crater? Could not figure out. Somewhere indicates that 120 kilometers is the diameter and somewhere says it's the depth. All information is dubious and unconfirmed. Nevertheless, it's well within the theory of the growth of the surface layer of the Earth. Over 25,000 years, craters had to reduce its depth of only 250 meters. We must admit that the theory of scientists, like the theory of enthusiasts, can't be proven, and they both have a right to exist. It should be fair to say that neither the estimates of the age of craters or evaluation of their origin have any conclusive evidence of neither the one nor the other. In fact, no evidence that the craters are of meteoric origin simply does not. This is just the only obvious version that can be offered as part of a mainstream science. Besides, it may well be that the scientists and independent researchers are right at the same time. Some of these craters, the largest, could really be formed millions of years ago in a collision with meteorites, and some smaller can be the result of nuclear strikes.
With so many conspiracy theories out there, it's hard to keep track of them all. Welcome to What We Know, where we try to uncover the histories and mysteries of the world by presenting all different theories out there, and the only narrative we push is this. Here's what we know, make up your own mind.
Myths and legends. As another indirect argument, fans cite numerous myths and legends of the peoples of the world, existing in a variety of cultures and describing something very similar to a nuclear war and nuclear explosions. For example, the Indian epic Mahabharata describes that people fleeing from attacks by land and quite accurately reproduces the appearance of a nuclear explosion. A single projectile, charged with all the power in the universe, brilliant column of smoke and flame, as bright as 1,000 suns, rose in all its splendor. Perpendicular explosion with its billowing smoke clouds. Cloud of smoke rising after its first explosion formed onto expanding round circles like the opening of giant parasols. The pygmies in Africa, there is a legend about the big fire from the sky, and it is described in the Vedas. The war between the Asuras, the inhabitants of the earth, and the gods emerged from the sky. Earthlings Asuras led them credulity. The gods deceived them, destroyed their city, and forced to seek refuge underground. In addition, many people in those countries where there is a giant desert. There are stories about ancient flowering cities, once existed on these dead lands. For example, the Chinese have a legend that in the Gobi, advanced civilization once lived. Hindus have a tradition of many towns that once existed in the great Indian desert called Tar, famous Sumer and Babylon, as well today buried under layers of sand. In the Egyptian desert, scientists still find signs of long-gone civilizations, and so around the world. Archaeological background. There are two archaeological evidence that enthusiastic researchers cited as evidence of a nuclear war. One such evidence unearthed in the 20th century in the ancient Indus Valley city of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. Official science dates back to 2600 BC. Around these two, in the cities, there was a huge number of rumors and speculation, which is now virtually impossible to confirm. Enthusiasts claim that the victims of nuclear attack remains were found people separately lying in the streets of the city, with no obvious damage. Where are the rest of the people? And why the city desolated remains unclear. Also argued that the remains had been found to have elevated radiation level, and the city basically destroyed in the center, while its suburbs suffered less. Ostensibly, this is a sign that there was the epicenter of a nuclear explosion, and there were found pieces of fused glass and clay and fused wall, almost turned into glass. Temperature for such a fusion can provide only a nuclear explosion. Unfortunately, none of these facts is impossible to confirm. Such less keep track of their source. Scientists have put forward a lot of counter and claim that things were not the case. There is no radiation, the buildings are well preserved, and the bodies are of different ages and in the tombs were formed in place of streets that were there in earlier times. The so-called glass alloys were simply dumb broken pots, which were made of clay and glass by firing in kilns. Another more reliable evidence was suggested by Russian scientists, an expedition to Peru and Bolivia in 2007. According to the results of this trip, was the film Lost the War from Forbidden History. The ruins of ancient settlements discovered in South America in fact look like they have been through a powerful explosion. Compared to them, Mohenjo-Daro looks virtually untouched. The film authors argue that this is evidence of a legendary war of the gods, which was mentioned in the myths. Finally, it should be noted that around the world found a giant underground tunnels artificial flat and smooth, melting the glass walls. The researchers argued that these underground tunnels and cities were built in during a nuclear war, from which people fled in such shelters. Turkey has been excavated entire underground city. Derinkuyu, one of the most famous underground cities, it really is a complete city with numerous buildings, extending deep into the ground in more than 20 floors. This city is not the only one. Scientists are puzzled why and who need to live underground. What made people stop sunlight? The conclusion is clear. Apparently, on the surface of the earth at the time it was impossible to live, or there was a powerful war, and the attack was carried out from the top, or a deluge, or a combination of both. But followers of the version of a nuclear war argue that just nuclear disaster led to a shift of poles of the planet and the flood, in which sank the legendary Atlantis. Who fought? Finally, the most mysterious and important question. If a nuclear war actually took place, which was fighting with whom? On this point, again, there are two basic versions. The first holds that the different races of people were fighting among themselves. The second, more unusual, argued for an alien invasion, and it had some arguments. First, again the epic, which describes the winged gods, lightning from heaven, and aircraft second. There are traces of the presence of aliens on Earth in ancient times. Numerous artifacts, statues, images, and legends about the origin of different people depict mysterious creatures with strange bodies, heads of an unusual shape, with scales, etc. However, it remains unclear why the aliens need to bomb the Earth, where they came from and where they disappeared after winning the war. Another very original version states that the war was purely sectarian, or fought the different races of Atlantis, or Atlantis fought with Urami, powerful Eurasian empire, for his separation from her. Urs themselves, or Ashuras, were the ancient ancestors of the Slavic peoples. As a result, Atlantis had drowned. But then we really don't know anything about our ancestors and the real history of the Earth. In accordance to the researchers, nuclear war and subsequent mutations explain well the tradition of one-eyed monsters, Cyclops, the three-headed dragon, mysterious underground monsters, giants, etc. All these mutants are the result of nuclear radiation and perhaps still live somewhere deep underground.
If you enjoy this video and want to see more like it, please consider subscribing to us and hitting the like button. Feel free to write a comment below and suggest which theory you want to see next. If you'd like to further support this channel, please consider joining. Our membership link will be found in the description box below. We appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.